All right. So I'm going to be talking about. Oh my gosh, it's like an egg. I'm going to be talking about art in college. So I went to University of Southern Mississippi, and I decided I was going to be an art major. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really looking for colleges because I had no motivation. I don't know, maybe I was depressed or something, and I decided that I was just going to wing it. So one day I come home and boom, I was able to go to University of Southern Mississippi. I got accepted. I had a 2.5 or something, and basically, my mom got her PhD there, so I was a legacy student, so I was able to go right in. Um, at first, I was optimistic about being an art student at University of Southern Mississippi, and I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be great. It's a great opportunity. Like I can do it." And then I soon realized how that was idiotic of me. To be perfectly honest, I think to say that Mississippi is just the best place for arts would be an overstatement, a severe overstatement. Because to be honest, Mississippi is not the place to go to sit there and have actual art skills. Mississippi is not the place to actually have this development of, you know, learn this artistic skill, learn this artistic skill. And one thing that I realized is basically I had a design one class and I had a drawing one class. The drawing one class was good. Then by the midterms, after that, I was pooped out. I got tired of sitting there doing the same stuff, the same things. I was never able to just wing it. I had to always study an object or study this. And I was like, okay, this is what I have to do, to the point where I stopped going to classes most of the time. My design class, I try to get out of that. But the way that they keep you, which I find funny because is, in high school they used to say that attendance was not going to matter in the college. You either go or you don't. That's your grade. But the thing is that what they didn't specify on is that attendance doesn't necessarily matter in a sense of, oh yeah, you have to go, or like they will come to your house if you haven't showed up to college. No, or they will come to your dorm room and say you haven't. No, but you have the power to sit there and go to the class. But attendance does matter because they will hold that against you and say, hey, okay, well you missed this amount of this amount of class days, so now your grade is an F, your average is an F. It doesn't matter if you put out this work, you know, you have to make perfect work to even be able to make it to the top. And so going to this design one class specifically, I was told that I was having to make designs, and it was like, okay, make this design, make the design. And I thought, okay, yes, I was going to learn the basics, but I was going to be able to express myself. And boy, was I wrong. The thing is, I wasn't allowed to express myself. I was allowed to express myself in the ways that the professor thought was okay. I wasn't able to go outside the box because going outside the box would be to break the rules, and to break the rules would mean to not learn the basics, and to not learn the basics would mean that I would be able to get a bad grade. To be honest, there would even be times where people would do something that would be complicated and would actually add extra things, but the professor would say, no, we're not going to do that because that's like next semester, which I thought was idiotic, because I would think that you would use certain students who actually did go above and beyond with certain stuff to sit there and be like, okay, this is good, that is good, okay, this is good. The professor fixated on this idea of having straight lines. That was his fixation, straight lines. This line has to be straight. This line has to be straight. That line has to be straight. Everything has to be straight. Nothing too complicated to the point where we're sitting there asking ourselves, okay, what does this mean? Okay, what does that mean? Nothing sitting there talking about making a story. He even argued the fact that doing art is not even about telling a story. Doing art is not even about making a story or making something that it's about your emotion. It's only about sitting there following the rules. Basically, his idea was everything that you do in art is following rules. Everything that you do in life, no matter if you like it or not, there's rules applied. And I was like, okay, that's realistic. That's great. He even told this class that if you wanted to be a painter or a artist or a drawer, then don't, because you're not going to make any money. I thought that was realistic. I mean, kind of conflicting considering that he's an art professor, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. there would be times where a lot of problematic things that I think with a lot of art professors is they get these older art professors and they have us going to, okay, the art professor will say, let's go to the back of the class, let's go to the gray table. And he will lay out all of these certain things, and it would be like, okay, let's look at this, let's look at that. I would go to my drawing one class, it would be like, let's look at Rembrandt, let's look at this, let's look at Picasso, let's look at, this is real art. And it's art that was ages ago that's real art, and somehow art has become this diluted thing. And I honestly think that's stupid, because to sit there and think that art has become diluted and that art has become nothing just because art has changed doesn't even make sense, because art itself is change. Art itself is the representation of what's going on in the now. So for people to sit there and say, my goodness, like the stuff they've been saying that this is not art, this is not what art is about, this is not, I was really confused to the point where I sort of got tired, because they would constantly sit there and regurgitate the same artist over and over again. This is what you need to strive for. This is the epitome of art. And it's like, I don't see how I can be able to express myself when my level of expression is always being compared to somebody else's expression. Their expression is far different from my expression. Learning a technique and then sitting there becoming a technique are two different things. And for some reason, some people don't honestly get that. Because me becoming a technique, using that technique, and actually becoming the technique is two different things. If I'm becoming Rembrandt, if I'm becoming an identical version of Rembrandt, I'm not being myself. Girl, shut up. Oh my God. What is she yelling about? If I'm becoming an identical part of myself, if I'm becoming this other artist, then I'm not really being my authentic self. There's certain things where I would do certain stuff, and I would be like, what was the reason that was bad? And it would be like, well, because I don't like that. You could literally see professors go up to, because we had a certain museum into the at the university, and they would look at that and they'll be like, I don't like that. Why don't you like it? Because it's abstract. They'll be like, I don't like that. Why don't you like that? Because it doesn't make any sense. I'll be like, why did you like that? They don't like that because it doesn't tell, it's not what I like. There even was something, living with the family, Lord. There was even something where it was like, okay, illustrations aren't art. Illustration isn't fine art. Illustration, it's not like dance and, cinema. Illustrations isn't fine art. Illustrations is just basic art. Sort of like saying illustration is just arts and crafts, which is so idiotic, because illustrations, I feel like, is one of the foundations of art. Illustrations is literally the core. It's one of the cores of art, because illustration is a part of telling a story. But for some reason, illustration is seen as less than. Why is illustration seen as less than? Well, because it doesn't worry about the shading and the grayscale and the lighting. And I said none of that matters necessarily. I feel like we say it matters because we want to prove that it matters, but none of that really, really matters. It's important, I guess, in the sense of, okay, yeah, this is how they did it, and this is what, but none of that matters, because I'm telling you, yes, artists do learn techniques, but they're not sitting here saying, okay, this whole piece is just going to be about shading, and we're sitting there taking techniques, and we're just looking at techniques, but we're not sitting there saying, why did they do that, and why would you sit there and do that? Asking the artist, the individual artist, why did you do that? We didn't even have a chance to look at our specific pieces, because it's like, it's too much. We have this certain curriculum, we have this certain thing set, and this is how we're going to do this curriculum, and this is how we're going to do this class, and you have to come at this time, and this is what you have to do, and I don't like this, and it's like you have to use straight lines, which is bull, because you don't have to use straight lines all the time in art. I don't know who told people that. I don't understand. Well, everything is comprised of straight lines. Not necessarily. None of my art has some straight lines in it, but most of it is curved lines. I don't utilize straight lines as much as people think. It's mostly curved lines. I mostly build from, making curve and being somewhat abstract and expressive. So it was hard for me to sit there and go from that to going to a simplistic idea and a simplistic concept, and having to make these a square within a square and somehow making that relevant. And the funny thing is, they could sit there and show us these famous pieces of literally a blue square and a black square and a yellow square, and have how that whole collage is going on, and make that seem like it's the epitome of art and art excellence. But then something that you put your blood, sweat, and tears, something that you put your story in, something that you use so much time and so much effort, you literally been through it, you pushed. Basically, you birthed this idea, this part of yourself onto this canvas. It's not enough, because it doesn't compare to the blocks that was made by some high out of his mind artist from so long ago. It bothers me. And so that's when I realized that I was like, I don't know if I'm connecting when it comes to the art institution or the art stuff in the University of Southern Mississippi, and being here in Mississippi, because I was like, maybe I should just go to LA, maybe I should just go to New York City, you know. But I was always more scared of that, because, you know, when you live in a smaller city or a medium-sized city, it's more shamed upon or more frowned upon to sit there and be like, go here and go there. You're not going to sit there and actually go, because you're like scared to death, like, fuck, where am I going to go? You know, where am I? Who? I like being here. You know, this is my safe place. But like I said, when people sit there and say, oh my gosh, you know, I love being here. Or, oh my gosh, I love being in Mississippi. I always ask them why, you know. Because as for artists, it's not a beautiful place. When it's not a place where it's just like, oh yeah, we have all the scholarships for you. It's just not necessarily. To be honest, to be perfectly honest, I think people limit art to just being crafts. Arts and crafts, basically, but like with a little bit of purpose. And people don't understand how influential art is, because with dance, with music, with movies, with like cinema, and with even paintings and drawings, that all connects us. That's all a part of the human identity. That's all a part of the human culture. And to sit there and not appreciate that, to me, is shameful. To me, is not even shameful, but just idiotic, to be honest, and ignorant, to sit there and put sports above art, because, well, we could profit off of sports. Even when I was in high school, the thing that was labeled arts was like speech and debate, and they would sit there and constantly have to profit off of speech and debate, because they would go to tournaments, and it's like, what does art have? What tournaments do they have? Even if we did have tournaments, even if they did have art competition that was in other states, nobody was going to sit there and help any of the art teachers or the art substitutes, because nobody was going to put in enough work to sit there and make something happen. No one was going to sit there and put in enough work to sit there and make that art thing happen. If you wanted to sit there and be an arts program in high school, you were going to have to do the stuff yourself. Nobody, the principal, nobody's going to sit there and help you, or try to sit there and make enough money, or to sit there and basically aid you in your campaigns or your future events that you want to do within the art world. They're not going to do that. It's just unrealistic. Unless you're like one of those bougie schools they show on Disney Channel. Like, oh yeah, like we're all in this, you know, maybe. But I doubt it. And so the thing is, when sitting there acknowledging that, I already was kind of hesitant on even becoming an artist, but that was literally one of the things that I was good at. And so when I was doing art, when I was sitting there being an artist, when I was sitting there going to that studio, and I was sitting there and I was listening to this art teacher, and he was sitting there doing this philosophical, you know, theoretical type of, you know, mouth mesh, whatever, I sort of got tired. I was more tired, not from him, but from myself, from actually tolerating this for so long. I realized that people, like I said, people don't really value art. People see it as less than. People, every time I would tell somebody I'm going to art class, they would sit there and roll their eyes and be like, you don't have it bad. I have mathematics. And the thing is, they don't really know how much time and how much money and how much effort is put into the arts, because they think, oh, maybe just theater or maybe something like that. And it's so interesting to me how it goes over people's heads, the amount of time and effort that you have to put into art, because I honestly think people don't care, because they don't have to care, because what do they're like, what do I benefit from a drawing? But they don't know that they benefit so much so from culture. So much minds and so much ideas were changed just from looking at a painting or drawing. So many emotions were drawn out of people just from drawing. Certain certain things probably took place in history because they were looking at certain forms of art and certain forms of media. So to sit there and say, why does it matter? It's like, well, maybe do your research, me, myself included. But what I'm sitting here saying is, the problem what I feel like is in a lot of art, in a lot of universities who claim that they have art and it's not an art school, you're already paying so much money if you don't have a scholarship. My parents was paying like $3,000, $2,000. Other people were getting scholarships because they were good at math. Other people were getting scholarships because they were being nurses, or they were doing some lawyer or something like that. Or maybe they were science majors. And so basically, and you know, people are getting rewarded for having a high GPA, but GPAs won't give you anything. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're smart. I realize that too, because a lot of people who are smart, they're sort of disconnected from reality, which is odd, because I thought the whole aspect of being intelligent would mean that you are somewhat connected to reality. That's why you're able to grow and to be able to be successful and be rich, because you were able to make connections and be smart. But that's not the case with everyone. And when trying to be an artist, when trying to do that, I always, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe if I had this 3 points, you know, maybe if I had this 4.0 GPA, maybe if I had, you know, a higher ACT score, maybe if I did this, I would have been better, and it would have just been easy for me. And in reality, it would have been easy for me, because you can benefit off of getting a full-time ride or full-time scholarship to a college because you were smart and you did the stuff. And, you know, that's just reality. That's the way it is. Because being an artist is not something that you can live off of. And so now, me sitting here in my room making this video, sitting here saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? It is odd for me to sit there and try to create this reality of me actually making it in life, because how am I going to make it in life if I'm not a known artist? How am I going to make it in life if I'm not this person? How am I going to make it in life if I'm not that person? How am I going to make it in life if I'm not doing what I need to do? How? Exactly. Exactly, sir. How? So, I find that so idiotic when I'm sitting here looking at these professors, and they're saying that they're this, you know, the epitome of what, this is the epitome of art, and this is the epitome of fine art. And this is when I knew that art is subjective, and this is when I knew that people sometimes they make their own personal influences your personal influence, and that's not right to me, because I'm an artist and I have my own way of expressing myself. And if you're going to sit there and limit that and try to justify it by saying you need to follow the rules, then I don't understand why you're trying to sit there and say that this is art, because at the end of the day, that means art no longer has its meaning. If you're sitting there trying to suck out everything and say follow the rules, it would be different if you were saying, okay, this design is sloppy because there's a certain way that you're supposed to do it, or this is that or that. You know, I understand that, but to sit there and be like, I don't like that, not because it's sloppy, not because it's uneven, but because, you know, it's just too much. Me personally, I don't like too many lines. Next. It has shading. I don't like shading. Next. It goes above and beyond. I don't like that. Next. That's not justifiable to me. That's not concrete to me, if that makes sense. That doesn't make sense to me. That's odd to me. And for someone to sit there and use that as a way to say, okay, well, that's the reason why you're not good at art. It's just, or that's the reason why you will never be good at art. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because a part of sitting there being a creative, to me, is not following the rules, because someone has to not follow the rules. Someone was always the first one to look stupid and look crazy, and then all of a sudden, years later, it becomes the trend of the day. You know, it's always something that you have to do in order to sit there and be at the forefront of what is this known creativity. And the thing is, it's like, you know, if you want to sit there and judge somebody for doing their art, you can. But at the same time, I feel like there's certain things that certain professors need to do when they want to sit there and try to help people with art. or they want to sit there. Like when I make my animations, I used to make lots of animations. I deleted some off my page. I re-uploaded one called Monsters in Us All, and that's not the best animation that I've done, but it is a part of me, and it did take a lot of work, and it's not something that I just slopped together. I bet you I worked on it almost every single day. It took me the whole summer. That was literally me by myself, not contacted with anybody else. I was by myself creating because I wanted to sit there and create something from my heart, and I studied on it, and I was sitting there putting my hard work into it, and I was sitting there doing it, and I wasn't worrying about the okay, this has to be perfect, this has to be perfect. No, it was about telling a story. And sometimes telling a story isn't perfect, because to sit there and try to make something perfect, to sit there and try to make something, this has to have no imperfections, is idiotic. Because the part of being human, the part of being, the blessing of being a human is being imperfect and not being this perfect thing. And I've always said the idea of being perfect is what perfect is. The concept of being perfect is what perfect is. But the reality of what perfect is just an illusion. It is not real. It's this idea of, oh, I'm perfect, I'm everything, everything's okay. But at the end of the day, we're human. And what makes us perfect is, oddly enough, being imperfect, not being perfect at all. That's how I see it. And so when I'm doing art, yeah, there's going to be times where I say, I don't really like that. That's with anything you do. I'm going to look at that, I'm going to be like, I don't really like that. I don't like how I did that. I don't like how I said that. I don't like how I made that. I don't like how I moved that. I don't like how I put that on the thing. I don't like how I did that. I don't like how I made that line. There's plenty of times where I would look at an art piece and I'll be like, I don't like that. That's normal. Yeah, you can always improve. But improving and then changing who you are as a person to sit there and apply yourself so you could just get a good grade for a professor, that's not the same thing. I'm no longer improving. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to make sure my GPA is good enough to sit there and accommodate to you. But then they'll tell you, don't accommodate to me. Don't sit there and do anything for me. Don't sit there and change your expression for me. But that's what I'm doing. I'm accommodating to what you want. I'm following your rules, and therefore I'm not sitting there doing what I want to do, and therefore I'm not expressing myself. I'm giving you a persona of me. I'm giving you a character of me, but I'm not giving you the real me. I'm giving you anything but the real me. And that's the idea that I think a lot of people need to understand when they're sitting there doing these art rooms and these studies of designs and stuff like this in school and colleges and universities. It's like, if you want to sit there and tell an artist how to express themselves, it's like, no. If you want to sit there and inform an artist, okay, this is how you could better your stuff. This is the certain methods that we use, and we go through the methods. I would understand that. There's a lot of times they say, read this book. The book is a bunch of bull. The book is literally, and the book can literally make sense without, but then at the same time not make sense at all. Because it's literally trying to find a way to make something so complex, when literally all you have to do is sit there and tell somebody, this is what this is. This is how you do it. There's no reason to sit there and say, oh, if you change this formula and the fourth square of the second square makes it. We don't have to do all of that. It's like you're trying to find a way to make yourself important because you know so many people underestimate you. You know what I'm saying? Like I have to overcompensate for the fact that I know that nobody takes me seriously. So let me be bougie and let me be an artist and use big words and I'm an intellectual. It's like you don't have to do that. Just tell people how. It's not always having to be this big spectacle of trying to teach artists how to be artists. Because even then, by saying that, trying to teach someone how to be an artist, you can't really teach anyone how to be an artist. It just comes, you know. It's a feel, it's emotion, it's what you are, it's the essence of you. You can't really teach someone how to become an artist. They're the artist or they're not an artist. Now, you can sit there and teach someone how to become a good artist or a better artist, but you can't teach someone how to be an artist because when they come to you, they're already an artist. Sitting there saying you're not an artist because you don't like that. Well, what makes you not like that? Then it's some bullshit like, okay, I don't like it because it's just too much, or it's too much to you, but it's what I think it is. It's what I am. Sitting there and something being simple, that's what bothers me too, does not mean that it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because everybody only cares about colors and too much. But this simple thing, this square in the middle of the paper, this is so perfect Well, I don't give a fuck about the square in the paper. What does the square in the middle of the paper offer for me? Why should I care about the square in the middle of the paper? I shouldn't, because it doesn't give me what I need, because it's not beneficial to me, because it doesn't hold anything for me. There's no reason to even value the square in the middle of the paper. There's no reason to value the square in the middle of the paper. Besides you telling me that because it's something that somebody told you, and that's somebody told you, because it's like, it's so simple and it's so perfect, but that is contradictive. Because for something to be so perfect in the middle and for it to be so equal, it takes away from what I feel, me personally, is what art is. Yeah, art could be simple, art could be perfect, art could be structured, but that's not how every artist is. So to sit there and say, you have to learn how to be simple and you have to learn how to be structured is bullshit. Because that's not, no sir, no ma'am. And so therefore, you could sit there and try to justify that. And you know, the other places I went, being in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, going to, you know, being an art major, you know, I've seen other people flourish and move on and do what they need to do, and that's because they've had their own moment and their epiphany, and people, different strokes for different folks. How about that? Quite literally. And so it is what it is. But I just noticed that. I was just like, what makes you think that you are the epitome of what it means to judge art? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Well, that's all I wanted to say. I have another video that I'm going to do for Pride Month. It's going to be edited. I'm going to edit that one. But I will probably post that later. So, I'll see you guys. I don't know when.